Hello, everybody. The Graph GRT just launched something that was, in many people's eyes, very similar to the utility of what Jasmy already brings to the table. You may be wondering, why should I own Jasmy if the Graph offers the same thing? And if anything, maybe the Graph is a little bit better. Well, believe it or not, I hold both, and I've been holding both for quite some time now, long before the recent news in regards to this whole thing called the Sunrise upgrade. Now, if you're wondering about that, it's a program that basically incentivizes the decentralization and democratization of just that access to data. Now, that sounds pretty familiar when it comes to Jasmy and its utility. You have to keep in mind, by completing different on and off chain tasks focused on the GRASS technology and its mission to decentralize data access on the internet, individuals can, of course, earn rewards in the form of what? GRT tokens. What does that sound like? Sounds like what Jasmy already offers in regards to the DD coin, right? We've been talking about this for a while, the data democratization coin. So, should you just get out of Jasmy and just go all into GRT? Well, you guys, for the most part, if you've been following me, know how I feel about that. But, I'm never the type of person where I feel as though you should be all in on one particular thing. If anything, diversify, right? The graph has a label, and it's basically known in the space as the Google of crypto. Why is that? Well, basically, it's indexing. So I decided to get more into this, do a little bit of a fair assessment in regards to comparing and contrasting and so on. And if anything, I wanted to give you guys a heads up on GRT. Most of us, for the most part in our community, are aware of GRT and so on. But on the surface, I wanted to jump over to, for example, this right here. And basically, what you're going to see is something that we should all pay attention to for the most part. So, number one, let's take you over to this. This is straight from CMC, Coin Market Cap. And what you're about to see right here is a fair assessment in regards to, tokenomics and especially what GRT is all about. Now, I'm going to go ahead and share this particular video clip with you guys here in a bit that's going to share with you what GRT, its fundamentals basically are, but at the same time, understand some key things here, and that is the querying of data for networks like Ethereum, obviously the IPFS, and understanding, for example, some of these other things when it comes to the deployment of subgraphs, 3,000 in fact, how they were deployed by thousands of developers. There's, for example, dApps like Uniswap. And for the purposes of this video, towards the end, we'll get into why Uniswap plays such a huge factor into the bigger picture of this. Before we get into this clip that explains the utility and just exactly the fundamentals of the graph, understand some basic things also that caught my eye. So I'm going to take you over to CoinGecko. You're going to also see here that your circulating supply, when it comes to the graph, well, we're almost close to 100%. Not exactly, but as you can see, that you have a circulating supply of 9,483,115,386. The total and max supply do match each other. So you're not exactly chasing, as the saying goes, an uphill battle when it comes to the graph. I am way up in the graph. I'm still in profits in the graph. Why is that? My last bag was roughly at 6 cents. It was right during the time of the FTX fiasco, and that was bottom basically. And if you came in at that time, you've also probably realized that since then. But there's a lot of things that definitely need to be mentioned and presented Why is that? Well, it's basically this, and I'm going to pull this up real quick, and that is this announcement from the graph. Before we get into this real quick, we're going to play this clip. It's going to give you the fundamentals. Listen to this, especially if you're the type of person which you're not aware of what the graph's foundational structure basically is, and so on, and trying to understand the utility. If you already understand that, you can skip this particular segment and fast forward it to after the part of this little animated clip. For everybody else, enjoy the clip. We'll be back in just a moment.
The graph is an indexing protocol for querying blockchain data that enables the creation of fully decentralized applications. The project was started in late 2017 by a trio of software engineers who were frustrated by the lack of tooling in the Ethereum ecosystem, which made building decentralized applications hard. After a few years of work and a lot of iterations, the graph went live in December 2020. The graph, as one of the infrastructure protocols, can be quite tricky to grasp, so before we jump into the details, let's try to understand what indexing, the main concept behind the graph, actually is. Indexing, in essence, allows for reducing the time required to find a particular piece of information. A real-life example is an index in a book. Instead of going through the whole book page by page to find a concept that we are looking for, we can find it much quicker in the index, which is sorted alphabetically, and it contains a reference to the actual page in a book. Similarly, in computer science, database indexes are used to achieve the same goal, cutting the search time. Instead of scanning the whole database table multiple times to provide data to an SQL query, indexes can dramatically speed up queries by providing quick access to relevant rows in a table. When it comes to blockchains such as Ethereum, indexing is super important. To understand why this is the case, let's see how a typical blockchain is built. A typical blockchain consists of blocks that contain transactions. Blocks are connected to their adjacent blocks and provide a linear, immutable history of what happened on the blockchain to date. Because of this design, a naive approach for searching for a particular piece of data, such as a transaction, would be to start with block 1 and search for a transaction across all transactions in that block. If the data is not found, we move to block 2 and continue our search. As you can imagine, this process would be highly inefficient. This is also why every popular blockchain explorer, such as Etherscan, built their own service for reading all the data on the blockchain and storing it in a database in a way that allows for quick retrieval of data. These kinds of services are very often called ingestion services, as they basically consume all the data and transform it into a queryable format. Although this approach usually works fine, it requires trusting the company that provides the data. This is not ideal for building fully decentralized and permissionless applications. On top of that, all private crypto companies that don't want to trust other APIs have to build their own ingestion service, which creates a lot of redundant work. This is also why a decentralized query protocol for blockchains was needed, and this is where the graph comes into play. The graph aims at becoming one of the main core infrastructure projects necessary for building fully decentralized applications. It focuses on decentralizing the query and API layer of decentralized web by removing a trade-off that dApps developers have to make today, whether to build an app that is performant or truly decentralized. The protocol allows for querying different networks, such as Ethereum or IPFS, by using a query language, GraphQL. GraphQL allows for specifying which fields we are interested in and what search criteria we would like to apply. Queryable data is organized in the form of subgraphs. One decentralized application can make use of one or multiple subgraphs. One subgraph can also consist of other subgraphs and provide a consolidated view of data that the application may be interested in. The graph provides an explorer that makes it easy to find subgraphs of the most popular protocols, such as Uniswap, Compound, Balancer, or ENS. Uniswap subgraph provides access to a lot of useful data, for example, the total volume across all trading pairs since the protocol was launched, volume data per trading pair, and data about particular tokens or transactions. Now, let's jump into the architecture of the graph protocol. The easiest way to explain this is to focus on different network participants first. Let's start with indexers. Indexers are the node operators of the graph. They can join the network by staking the GRT tokens and running a graph node. Their main function is to index relevant subgraphs. Indexers earn rewards by indexing subgraphs and fees for serving queries on those subgraphs. They can also set prices for their services. To keep prices in check, each indexer competes with other indexers, on top of ensuring the highest quality of their data. This basically creates a marketplace for the services provided by indexers. Consumers query indexers and pay them for providing data from different subgraphs. Consumers can be either end users, other web services, or middleware. Curators are other important network participants. They use their GRT tokens to signal what subgraphs are worth indexing. Curators can be either developers that want to make sure their subgraph is indexed by indexers, or end users that find a particular subgraph valuable and worth indexing. Curators are financially incentivized as they receive rewards that are proportional to how popular a particular subgraph becomes. Delegators are yet another network participant. They stake their GRT on behalf of indexers in order to earn a portion of indexers' rewards and fees. Delegators don't have to run a graph node. Last but not least are fishermen and arbitrators. They become useful in case of a dispute that can happen, for example, when an indexer provides incorrect data to the consumer. Now, let's see how the network participants cooperate in order to create a trustless and decentralized system. Let's say a new decentralized exchange has launched, and the team behind the project wants to allow other applications for easy access to the exchange's historical volume and other data points. To encourage indexers to index the new subgraph, a curator has to step in and signal that the new subgraph is worth indexing. Here we have two options. If the new exchange was a highly anticipated project with a lot of potential, an already existing curator would most likely step in and use their GRT tokens to signal the usefulness of the new subgraph. If the subgraph becomes popular, the curator would financially benefit from their signaling. In the case that the new exchange is not highly anticipated, the developers behind the project can become curators themselves and use their GRT to encourage indexers. Once this happens, the indexers can step in and start indexing the subgraph. This process can take a few hours or even a few days, depending on how much data has to be indexed. Once indexing is completed, the consumers can start querying the subgraph. Each query issued by the consumers requires payment in GRT that is handled by the query engine. The query engine also acts as a trading engine, making decisions such as which indexers to do business with. To make this process smoother, the graph uses payment channels between the consumer and the indexer. If the indexer provides incorrect results, a dispute process can be initiated. If you'd like to dive deeper into the architecture behind the graph protocol, I'll put a few useful links in the description box below. Now, time to discuss the GRT token. GRT is a utility token that plays an important role in the graph network design. As we mentioned earlier, GRT is used by curators to signal subgraphs that are worth indexing. On top of this, it's staked by indexers to keep their incentives in check. Besides that, people who own GRT tokens but don't want to be indexers and run the GRT node can become delegators and earn a portion of indexers' reward. And also, consumers pay for the queries in GRT. The graph had an initial supply of 10 billion GRT tokens and new token issuance at 3% annually that is used for paying the indexing rewards. There is also a token burning mechanism that is expected to start at around 1% of total protocol query fees. The Graph protocol had a huge interest from venture capital, with plenty of big names, including Coinbase Venture, participating in their initial offering. The Graph core team aims at decentralizing the protocol further by launching on-chain governance, the Graph Council, in the future. The protocol that is currently deployed to the Ethereum mainnet only supports indexing Ethereum, but multi-blockchain support is one of the areas for further research. The Graph is already used by other popular projects such as Uniswap, Synthetix, Decentraland, and Aragon. It looks like the Graph could be one of the missing puzzles in the effort of increasing the decentralization of dApps. Some people went as far as calling the Graph the Google of blockchains, pointing at similarities between indexing websites by Google and indexing blockchains and decentralized applications by the Graph. If this analogy is correct, and the Graph indeed becomes a go-to protocol for indexing Web3, it has a lot of potential to grow. So what do you think about the Graph? Will it become a core piece of infrastructure in the decentralized world? Comment down below.
All right, welcome back. So now that you have an idea of what the Graph basically is, let's get back into this announcement in regards to the Graph. So I'm going to go ahead and full screen this. And I do feel as though it's a big deal. And I knew it was going to be just a matter of time that people from the community would basically mention this. So as you can see right here, you have a perfect case of, a big announcement. How long ago? Well, May 2nd. That wasn't too long ago at all, right? Well, basically, the Graph, straight from the official Graph, has mentioned that their foundation launched a 4 million GRT Sunrise upgrade. And like I mentioned, it empowers anyone on the internet to revolutionize how the world accesses data. And basically speaking, when you get more into the nitty gritty of this, they will allow you to join and complete a variety of fun on-chain, off-chain missions ranging from contributing to the Graph network and also helping out in regards to providing what they refer to as like data monopolies to the legacy web. They have this whole thing of introducing the Sunrise upgrade program, but most importantly is understanding what it says here when it comes to the variety of creative, technical, and non-technical missions in support of Graph's Sunrise of decentralized data. It's a 3-phase plan, and it does enable all subgraphs to upgrade seamlessly to the Graph network. Now, that's pretty big. But more importantly, when we compare this to, for example, Jasmy, when you see statements of this, where it says the Graph Foundation allocated up to 4 million GRT to reward the Graph community and even newcomers for their contributions by completing these missions, and how you can, receive GRT rewards, and it's connected to data democratization. That sounds like Jasmy big time with what they already offer. So I thought I'd get more into this. As you can see on the, this little animated GIF, it gets, gets into the whole thing about democratizing that data and how you could earn GRT. Sounds very similar to obviously like what Jasmy has to offer. But again, if you watch that video clip, you understand that GRT's utility is different when it comes to Jasmy's utility at the same time, right? Different use cases and so on. Is it just another layer? I would say it's another layer of utility. That's a cool thing. I'll get into more of the fundamentals about the differences here in a bit, but I wanted to point out the Sunrise program in itself. And anybody can sign up for this They have instructions on how you can do it. You can register for this and so on. And basically, it's not too late, right? Like it says. As you get more into it, they have a page which is thegraph.com/sunrise upgrade program. And as you can see also right here, that in this specific program, you have the ability to basically join, as this also says, revolutionize how the world accesses data via the graph, and of course, earn rewards from a pool of 4 million GRT in the process. If you click on where it says sign up now, it gives you instructions. But this part where it talks about your data, your autonomy, centralized what? Software as a service companies and giants of the legacy web want to control data. Again, sounds a lot like what Jasmy already offers. Is this direct competition to Jasmy? Well, it may seem that way, right? Understanding there will always be other people that will come into the bigger picture. But for me personally, and I'll come back in the frame just to discuss this for a moment, the way I look at it is that's good. Understand that Jasmy has already laid down those standards and that foundation a long time ago. You can appreciate that there's other ones that recognize how much value that is. So the way I look at it is I'm that much more bullish on Jasmy, and I'm that much more bullish even on GRT. So as I full screen this more and present it to you guys just a little bit more deeper, you will see some things that is just got to be worth pointing out. If I don't point it out, somebody will, right? So if you want to try this out for yourself, like it says, you can complete these missions, you can earn GRT, and missions are both non-technical as well as technical, and they range from contributions to the GRT network, creating helpful content. Regards to Sunrise, like it says, missions encompass a broad scope of skills, including marketing, writing, using the graph, creating design, engineering, and beyond. They, of course, have rules, tells you how you can participate. It's actually been running as of roughly a couple days ago, right? May 3rd. It will basically go to June 20th. The Sunrise Upgrade program concludes on June 20th, but 8 days after the upgrade, the window officially closes. Each email will contain a variety of missions that can be completed, mix and match as you like. And in order to become eligible for each mission's rewards allotment, missions are broken down into the following 2 categories. I like how it's narrowed down to 2. We'll get into just these 2 for a brief moment. So one thing that it mentions again is being able to put these pieces together as far as the value of data autonomy, blog posts, upgrading, and basically growing the graph, the community. But it's the whole thing of upgrading the decentralized network and Sunrise support, creating fun videos if that's your thing, memes. I know most of you guys may very well be into that. But you do see how it's not super technical. And if you are technical, well, then they all obviously have that. There's rules and eligibility. You're more than welcome to read some of that stuff if you choose to do so. And of course, like it says, sign up now. So my thing is, some of these things in regards to the wording, like graph rising and some of the other terminology. As I get into the next part of this, you can go to the graph.deform.cc, which is called the Sunrise Upgrade. And in this upgrade, it gets more into the specifics in regards to, how you can or supposedly, empower the world by democratizing data access. Again, sounds a lot like Jasmy, right? So it's all there. It's pretty simple if you want to get into it and so on. But on the last part, what really, really caught my eye is this. You see this, for example, and it's in Chinese, not Japanese, but it says the Sunrise Upgrade Program is for everyone. Posted when? May 3rd. And it mentions how it's for everyone, everywhere in the world. If you were to click on this, go to the next page, it will take you to a site called blockbeats.info. And they mention how the graph officially launches the Sunrise Upgrade. And again, back to the whole thing of the distribution of 4 million GRT rewards. But you get this whole idea of like sunrise, something like, kind of like similar like Japan, the rising sun and so on. And it gets more into the whole thing of fighting back. How? By celebrating decentralized data and competing, I should say, with the monopoly and legacy centralized software as a service internet giants, and how they're fighting back as they try to basically control the data. Again, very, very similar to what Jasmy looks to be doing, right? So, my thing is, if you watch that video, you heard the whole thing in regards to Uniswap, right? Especially when it comes to the graph. And with that said, there was some recent news that came out in regards to the graph. And one of the things that really caught my eye was this whole thing of the graph being integrated into Robinhood Connect as a new fiat on ramp provider. If you don't know about this, it's okay. It was new recent news, but the new on ramp joins existing options like Coinbase Pay, MoonPay. Some of you guys are familiar with this in the past, especially if you've done any type of transactions on the Uniswap platform, especially for memes and so on, or other ERC20 tokens. But it provides US users with an additional method of buying crypto directly within the Uniswap app. Keep in mind, Uniswap has been heavily, heavily attacked when it comes to the whole thing of, like the SEC going after them and so on, right? So you have to keep in mind that, at the end of the day, there's something going on with all this, right? Is this, Uniswap preparing for all this in anticipation for something big? I think the answer is yes, action and reaction. But this specifically in regards to Uniswap, check this out for a second for yourself. Back to the whole thing of like what the graph mentioned, and it's this whole thing of simplifying crypto purchases for US users, because even I myself, my first point of contact when it came to crypto was Robinhood. A lot of you guys, when you started your journey, could vouch for that for yourself, right? We get a little wet around the ears, and it's like you just got off that fresh boat of Robinhood, right? Whether we're proud about that or not, it was part of the journey. But again, understanding the simplification, there's value in simplifying things. So May 1st, 2024, leading decentralized exchange Uniswap has partnered with Robinhood trading platform in order to ease crypto buying and selling. How so? What are they offering? Well, basically on April 30th, the popular millennial trading platform, aka Robinhood, announced that it is doing this whole thing of this connect feature with crypto and making it available on Uniswap, even like the mobile platform. They have this thing of how Robinhood customers can get $10 in USD coin, which is USDC stablecoin, as a reward. Right. So these are incentives. You can read more about this, but the point is, Robinhood, Uniswap, what the heck is going on with that? And especially back to the reference in regards to the graph, right? We saw that in the video clip. So very, very interesting. All right. Why so? Well, what is around the corner? Well, here's the answer. So I mentioned this before, and that is this. And if you haven't seen this, I do mention it every now and then on the live show. But basically speaking, I wanted to point out this introduction to Uniswap v4. As we know, these contracts, right? The most popular one is v2. But what happens when we go into this next era when it comes to this bull market that we're into, and we get to the height of that bull market, right? I'll get into a little bit more about that here in a bit, but I want to share this with you. So Uniswap v4, latest iteration of the Uniswap protocol, significant advancement for DEXs and automated market makers. Here's some key features, but like you've seen in the past, like with XRP, it's hooks. Okay, so V4 introduces a new feature called hooks. If you're not aware of that, it's basically smart contracts that can be attached to liquidity pools. These hooks enable a high degree customization. Okay, functionalities like different points in pools life cycle, liquidity modifications, all sorts of things. But again, what you see here in regards to gas, right? And as we know, when it comes to Uniswap, there is this whole thing, especially when it comes to ERC20. Nobody loves, or most people hate, right? Gas fees. So in previous versions, in regards to Uniswap, each token pair required a separate smart contract. Some of you guys have been familiar with, this in the past, especially if you were really active on Uniswap, meme coins, and so on. You're already aware of this. But these token pairings required a separate smart contract, leading to higher gas costs, especially in multi-hop trades. The singleton contract mode consolidates all pools into a single contract, significantly reducing gas costs for both trading and pool creation. Look at this, guys. I mentioned this in the past before on a live show or multiple live shows. Creating a new pool in V4 is 99% cheaper in gas costs compared to V3, lowering barriers for setting up those pools. What about more about this whole reduction of gas costs? Well, they have this thing called Flash accounting system. Uniswap V4 has a system that basically will allow the user to settle their debts in an entire transaction, and how it reverts to like ensuring security, efficiency, but the system is similar to flash loans in concept, and is part of an effort to reduce gas costs and enhance transaction efficiency on the platform. Unlimited fee tiers. Uniswap V4 allows unlimited fee tiers for various liquidity pools, and how each pool can have its unique fee tiers, optimizing the platform's appeal to a wider spectrum. What spectrum, guys? Think about it. It's newcomers, and that has a lot of value if you really look into the bigger picture of things. I'll get into the next part, why I want to point this out to you guys, especially with the graph connection, right? Like we saw in that video clip, is this. Boom. Uniswap V4 hasn't been released. The answer, of course, is no. But what does it say here? You see that Uniswap has announced that it is targeting the third quarter of 2024 for the release of that Uniswap V4 upgrade. Now, I'm telling you this much, all right? I am not telling you to go out and buy a bunch of Uniswap. You could choose to do what you want in regards to that. But when we give you guys examples of utility in motion, understand this. We are not fans of those gas fees. But like Mark Cuban has pointed out, and I highly advise anybody check out this particular clip, when he was interviewed a couple years ago, he mentioned that he loves Ethereum. Why is that? It's because it does activate a utility, which is gas fees. And those gas fees being continuously used and so on. Just because you haven't seen a lot in regards to price action for Uniswap, within the last year and so on, understand at the height of the bull market, wow, there's some things really cooking for Uniswap. Activate that with everything we saw in the video clip with the graph, and you have a bigger idea of where this thing might very well start to go to, because it starts activating just that utility in motion. So where are we going with this? Well, check this out. I want to point this out, and again, I think it is a big deal. So here is Uniswap. You do see that's currently sitting at $7.43. And for a lot of people, you see it part of the top 50. You're like, there's a lot of other better opportunities. Hey, I get that. But on the short end, this is right around the corner, in my opinion, okay, that you can see at least a 6x, which I get it. There's a lot of other opportunities. We're all trying to get the 100x's and the 1000x's, right? But for some of us, you want something that seems to be a little bit more near, okay? So the way I look at it is, do you not see some momentum happening already, okay? This is towards the end right here. And last bull market, what we saw here, for example, April, May 2021, you saw Uniswap go to all-time highs. You saw it by May 2021, it went up to almost $45. From where we're currently at right now, guys, that's a 6x, okay? And the way I look at it is, I'm not saying it's going to happen, by this summer, but understanding that if you have a platform that's going to save people a lot of gas fees, they're going to come back to the platform, especially when it comes to ETH and especially when it comes to memes. That's a given. We've seen that in Solana when it comes to memes. Solana is absolutely killing it, as we know, when it comes to memes, right? So the way I look at it is understanding the bigger picture. And the other thing I want to mention in regards to just some of my brief notes, real quick, is, you know, this whole thing, obviously, with Jasmy, the graph, even Uniswap, right? So, in a nutshell, with everything that's been presented, basically, I want to get into some key fundamentals to wrap things up. So, as we know, it's democratizing data. Jasmy, the graph, like, what the heck? It's for some people, it creates some kind of FUD, if you want to call that. The way I look at it is, I appreciate the whole idea that Jasmy literally laid down the standard for other companies to want to get into this and realize the value, right? But there are similarities when it comes to, obviously, the graph and Jasmy. So the way I look at it in a nutshell, it's like this: data democratization, okay? The fundamentals when it comes to that. Both projects aim to give users control over just what? Data, right? And break down data monopolies. Both, obviously, the graph and Jasmy have both utilized tokens, right? So Jasmy, for example, also with the DD coin, and then GRT, right? Obviously, having this whole thing with Sunrise. So both incentivize user participation and contributions. Well, another thing I want to point out is the differences. Well, what's the focus in regards to, for example, the graph? Well, with the graph, their focus is decentralized protocol for, of course, indexing. Hence the term the Google of crypto, right? Because Google is the world's largest indexing platform. But the graph decentralizing everything with their protocol and querying data from blockchains, well, that's a big deal. Obviously, with what you saw with Uniswap, definitely stands out among all, in my opinion, right? There's other things that it's going to do, but on the short end, that is coming, and that's coming here soon, very soon. Jasmy, on the other hand, with its difference, is, of course, is PDL, that's personal data locker. So, Jasmy focuses on the whole idea of like more of that personal data management and creating, of course, just that, something that I'm looking forward to, you guys are looking forward to, and so on. And that is a data marketplace. What about the technical approach? Well, with the graph, you have, for example, the uses of subgraphs, like we shared at the beginning of this particular video segment, right? But it's the subgraphs to structure and query just that, data. Jasmy utilizes secure data exchange, which is called SET, and it's a protocol for secure data sharing. What about the target market? Great question. With the graph, you have the whole thing of them catering to developers and projects building on just that, blockchains. Jasmy, however, targets a more broader audience. Don't ever get that twisted. What audience is that? Well, basically speaking, it would include individuals seeking control over specifically their personal data. So I can appreciate both offering something, but it doesn't mean that, the graph is just completely destroy Jasmy, and there's no point in holding Jasmy. Understand the bigger picture when it comes to Jasmy, IoT. When it comes to software as a service, obviously the graph mentions that as well. But it's the things that are connected, even on the back ends of things, right? When we talk about Panasonic and so on, it's not that Jasmy has a direct partnership with Tesla, but recognizing that Tesla, through the Internet of Things, are going to be plugged into that whole network, and to see Jasmy have its specific patents that will allow the collection of that data and so on, especially with Panasonic and some of these other things, that's huge, right? Never want to dismiss that. So in the end, why should you own both, right? Everybody's asking that. Well, it's diversification, like I mentioned earlier. You have to keep in mind that holding both tokens provides diversification within the data ownership niche. Some of you guys call it niche. And on top of that, complementary uses. Keep in mind that with the graph, they focus on blockchain data, like I mentioned before, while Jasmy targets personal data. Only both could be beneficial depending, of course, on your specific needs or maybe certain companies' specific needs, whether it's IoT or some of these other things, right? The future, right? In closing, well, keep in mind the Sunrise program indicates the graph's commitment to growing its network. Success could lead to wider adoption and token value increase. This is why I've been so bullish on the graph, mainly because of some of those specific things. And to get this whole news about Sunrise, that's big. Jasmy, focus on personal data management, as we know, could very well see increased relevance as data privacy regulations, of course, evolve. Ultimately, when it comes to all of this, the decision depends on your investment goals, mine, and so on. But the way I look at it is I will hold both because why would I not want to hold both, right? I recognize the utility of both are huge, absolutely huge. So, one of the things I want to get into before we absolutely close this out is recognizing this last part in regards to specifically, you know, Ethereum and of course Uniswap. So this whole announcement of the third quarter of 2024, like I mentioned before, the release of that V4 upgrade. Okay, I know I said close it out, but that was in regards to like Jasmy and so on. The thing I want to mainly point out in regards to the significance of that is this V4 upgrade. And basically speaking, even though you didn't see it in some of the articles, I'll give you guys the quick gist about that real quick. The launch hinges on the successful implementation of this thing that's referred to as Ethereum's Denkin hard fork. And basically, that happened in March of 2024. Denkin in itself, if you're not aware of it, includes this thing called EIP 1153 or EIP 1153 if you're going to get really super technical. In a nutshell, if you're not a nerd, it allows for more secure and complex smart contracts. But what, in what specifically? Well, Uniswap v4 to be aimed as the most rigorously audited code ever deployed on what? Ethereum. According to Uniswap Foundation and the Denkin upgrade, it's going to pave the way to reach this goal, supposedly, right? We'll have to see how, how the outcome happens. But the bottom line is hooks, okay? Uniswap v4 does introduce these hooks. It is complex and so on, but it's going to offer a wide range of DeFi applications being built on, of course, Uniswap. And then have some kind of mobile access to all that. That's big. And then on top of it, Robinhood, again, the ease of access. There's a lot of people that are going to be coming into the space of crypto for the very first time, just like when I first entered into crypto for the very first time back in 2021, or maybe some of you guys as well through what, guys? Robinhood, right? Part of the journey. So I wanted to point that out. And then the last thing I wanted to point out was in regards to EIP 1153, just a little bit of the technicals about that. What does it mean specifically for Uniswap moving forward? And again, understanding that GRT, the graph plug with the whole thing. EIP 1153 is known as transient storage. That should catch your eye for a bit, or your ear, depending if you're listening. I get a lot of reports of you guys listening to the program, driving down the road, right on. But it's a feature basically, guys. And it's included in Ethereum's Denkin hard fork, and it includes a new concept of the EVM, right? Ethereum virtual machine. Allows data storage during a transaction, temporary data storage, okay? Even with Jasmy, understand that Jasmy is still on Ethereum. I know a lot of you guys are looking forward to this layer 2 and so on, but understand that this is even a big deal for Jasmy, okay? So, and if you're wondering the significance in layman's terms, you got to look at it from like, you ever build a computer? I have, and so on, some of us that are geeks and nerds and so on. It's similar to like how RAM works, right? RAM, memory. But this temporary data, unlike regular storage on the blockchain, is discarded after the transaction is complete. What does that sound a lot like? Right, IPFS, because IPFS basically does a very good job of, taking data and put it to where it could be used correctly. Another model that we've seen is Caspa. Caspa with Ghost Egg technology does a similar model where data is stored where it should be and it gets eliminated in areas as far as temporary data if it's not being used, right? No, no waste of space, as the saying goes. So what does it basically mean? It means reduce cost, improve performance, enables temporary data storage on that new EIP-1153. Yeah, 1153 to be reduced for the for the need of storage. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. Um, for unnecessary data on the blockchain. Okay, back to those other examples. So it can lead to lower transaction fees and improve the overall performance of smart contracts like Uniswap. Boom. Back to the whole thing of V4 for Uniswap, back to the whole thing of the graph indexing just that, right? So when we have, I guess you could say some of these searches, as the saying goes, especially through the graph, understand that Uniswap will definitely help the graph just as much as the graph will help Uniswap. That's big. That's huge. This other thing I want to get into real quick. EIP, this new functionality. EIP 1153 opens up the door for new functionalities, of course, with Uniswap, but developers can do what? They can leverage transient storage to create a more complex and efficient features within the decentralized exchange. In a nutshell, it paves the way for Uniswap to take advantage of the benefits offered by EIP-1153, potentially make it more cost-effective and a feature-rich platform. Again, combine that with what GRT is already doing, like if you saw it in the video, understanding that we are so soon around the corner, in my opinion, when it comes to seeing some of the price action for Uniswap, GRT especially. And if you're just a Jasmy watcher, you gotta love and appreciate the whole idea that Jasmy has literally laid down the standard, and you're seeing a lot of other blockchains and use cases from some of these other ones following suit. You gotta love and appreciate that. At least I do. Anyway, I thought I'd bring it to you guys. Maybe got too technical in some of this, but thought I would bring some of the fundamentals to you guys to understand the bigger picture. I personally own all three of these, but I get it. When it comes to, getting more of that explosive growth, you're more interested in, 10x's, 100x's, and so on, right? But on the short end, Uniswap, I just feel as though it's going to have its second all-time highs, and I really feel as though it's right around the corner. The graph in that regard as well. Even Jasmy, obviously, we're looking forward to it going to 3 cents and so on. Guys, stay tuned for the live show. It's coming back. Obviously, I've had some distractions and so on, but summer, Bitcoin to 100K, BTC to 100K as early as summer. I got some news I want to share in that regard. Don't want to make this a 2 or 3 hour long video focused on some other things, right? So with that said, smash the like. Thanks again for tuning in. Not every day I do a recorded video kind of like this type of format, but I'm glad to bring it to you guys. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one. Some of you guys ask what cold storage solution I use. I use this, and it is the Decent wallet. All right. I also, of course, have a ledger like this. All right. You can get a discount basically from going into the affiliate link, which is in all the live video descriptions and recorded and so on. And for the yahoos that are out there, they're like, this is just a shield. And, we'll fix point this out. And it's a great point. Were you aware that you don't necessarily get a discount link just going straight to the site? No, you actually have to go through a platform like this. So how cool is that? I don't think anybody's complaining about that. But anyway, use the link, get a discount. There's another one here. If you're the type of person you want to get one for you and your significant other, you can get 2 of them. They actually have another promotion, which is this, and I think this is cool. You can get an all-in-one card wallet plus backup card package Interesting. I thought that was cool. And again, one of the main key things I like about the Descent wallet is not having to do the red tape of, jumping through all the hoops for XDC and the custom folder. I mean, Edward Vincent can vouch on that. Some of you guys can too as well in regards to Ledger. That was a pain in the butt. You don't have that problem. You literally open up your phone, it's on your app, track everything that's going on, right? And saying goes, not your keys, not your crypto. You know the drill. Check it all out though if you wish to do so. It is truly the cold storage solution that I use for the most part. There's still some on Ledger that I kind of split it up on and so on. So it is what it is. But if I have preference over one, I'm going with this one. A lot easier to use and so on. And some people, even to this day, still ask me which one to use.